Hello.
I'm so excited to be here. Can you believe that you're so far away?
I know. I'm so far away and I'm just trapped in this box as we are in permanent lockdown the whole time. But you know, it's so funny when I can't remember when I did the Style Core training course in LA with you and Erin. Let's say, I mean, at least I would say like 5 years ago, I'm thinking.
Easy,
right. Yeah. But over the last nearly 2 years now, you, me and Erin, the three of us have worked together offering the Going Virtual course. And despite the fact that you guys are in California, I'm in Australia, it's like we're sharing an office. Just every day it just feels completely normal.
I've been thinking about that, and I think it's because we truly love each other. We really like each other. Yes. We can laugh. There is no judgment. And, you know, this is key in creating safety. So it's just, we have fun together.
Yes. What I wanted to share, you have something that I think is really rare, and as an image professional, part of your role is obviously to provide critique, supportive, kind, encouraging critique. But you have mastered this skill, this ability to deliver. I say critique, it just has such negative connotations, but essentially, you know, it is suggestions with such warmth and heart. Did you do psychology, or how did that come about? How can you do this?
Well, I have had years of therapy, really good therapy, years of prayer, years of reading every book, a self-help book that had to do with psychology and becoming a whole person. I had two lives, actually. One was I was raised on a farm with two grandmas. One had lived in the house, and with no judgment, they were the most amazing, loving, supporting people. And a mom and dad that were healthy emotionally. Yeah. And so there was that life. And then I was born with a malformation of hands and feet. So I had to go into hospital to have these bands that were wrapped around my fingers and my feet. So as I grew, if the bands were taken off, I would lose a foot and a hand. So at 13 months, I was put into hospital for 6 months. And those days, they thought that I would heal faster if I only bonded to the nurses, so they wouldn't let my parents see me at all. Oh my God. And it was, it was awful for my mother and dad. They would drive 5 hours, call, have the nurses put me in the window to see me for 10, and on the second floor to see me for 10 minutes. And then they would drive back to the farm. Oh. So it was awful. But I was put into a crib in isolation, iron crib. I wasn't allowed my little blankie or my little teddy because it was pre-penicillin. So it was very dangerous to bring in a child in the hospital. So my little soul went into hiding, and I became very self-protective. It was all about me. It was all about being perfect, or I would be abandoned again. Well, that abandonment syndrome takes many, 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 many years to work through. The gift of that abandonment is that I understand when someone has been ravaged, neglected, abandoned, hurt. I had surgeries and would cry, and no one could stop the pain. And so I stopped crying until my father died suddenly when I was 26. Then was the first time I cried. So I learned about a healthy family and pretended. And then I was very self-absorbed and protective over here and had to be perfect. So I learned everything. I did everything. I was, Miss Best at everything, or I'd be abandoned. That gave me this perspective. As I healed over the years, it took a conscious choice to do that. I knew that it was possible. And then I was when you've had trauma, whether it's abandonment, alcohol, sexual abuse, whatever, you become very aware of everyone in the room, how they're feeling, what's going on. So that sensitivity has been such a gift, because over the years, I've moved from self-absorbed to giving to others. It's sort of all about you, not anything about me. For my 70th birthday, I wrote and performed a cabaret of Broadway songs that I labeled Tales of a Recovering Narcissist, because that's what I was. I was so self-absorbed. And so now it's all about listening, checking in. Who are you really? I really want to know. And that curiosity that you can have when you're not concerned about how someone is feeling about you. I'm only concerned about learning about you. And
do you think, but just to ask, do you think that that's because there's a part of you that wants to give others the nurturing and the love that you didn't get when you needed it most?
Yes. And the nurturing and love I didn't get from the hospital, though they tried, but it wasn't family. And the amazing nurturing I got from my family of origin when I came back and didn't know them. And they just loved me, even when I would, be so self-centered. They just thought I was wonderful. I mean, how often do we have an environment of a family that says, oh, I talked to my mom and I said, oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. I was so selfish and da, 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 da.
We've all been there.
And she said, oh, sweetheart, you were just lovely. Oh. I was so proud of you. And I went, wow, now that's a mother, right? And a grandmother and a father. So I also realized very few people have that. I think in my practice, I have had 5, maybe 4 people that came to me, and my response was, why are you here? You just are radiating this lovely sense of being, and everything that you have on looks like it belongs on just you, even if it's just a little shift. And so then I would ask the question, on which I now pretty much ask all my clients. I stumble on these things. I believe that God gives me these inspirations. But the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, and you have to ask this question with no thought that what the answer is going to be. Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, how effective were your primary caregivers? Could have been an aunt, an uncle, a grandmother, a friend, or it could be a coach, in school. Your primary caregivers in affirming your being not your doing. It's really big, the difference between being and doing, because I was affirmed by my family for just being. Now, the fact that I did a lot of good things, but it wouldn't have mattered if I'd done dastardly things. They would have loved me through that. That is so rare. So the answers I usually get, the 4 or 5 people, it was always an 8 or a 9. If someone says 8 or 9, and they are giving the messages that they don't know themselves, then I go a little deeper. So tell me about that.
I love, that's a classic Carla. I think you could have that on a t-shirt. Tell me about that, which I'll just say, when I did your course with my best friend, and we still, to this day, if one of us is kind of, trying something and it's not working, we'll say, you tell me about that? We're going to just tell me about that, because it's a perfect way of saying no.
I know.
And just
there could be something better, maybe.
Yes,
it's not.
Before you go on, I have about 1,000 questions, because what you've just said is so. It's so interesting, and it gets to the heart of what I personally believe the image industry is about. I want to bring up the concept of wound matching. I don't know if you've come across that, but it sounds to me like in your earlier sort of sentiments were, you can see once you've experienced trauma or pain, experiences like that, I think you become sort of not only empathetic, but almost subconsciously empathetic, drawn to notice people that have similar experiences. Yeah. Would you agree?
Right. I do. Someone years ago asked me, what does it take to be a good style, color consultant? Yeah. And I said, well, it helps to have been a recovering something. I don't care what you're recovering from, but whatever you go through in a recovery are just really helpful.
Explain this to everyone listening, because something that I try and explain is the tools, for example, your textbook, The Triumph of Individual Style, your color framework, the way that you teach. Sorry, everyone, there was just makeup brush prong on my eye. The framework that you teach is taught. So all of your students are now kind of trained in your methods. Those are the tools. But the missing piece, what allows you to connect with another person and ultimately have that connection, grow your business, is this missing piece. So tell us about that.
Okay. I really believe that, yes, it's great to know these tools, but that's the most important thing. When a client comes to you, is that she feels heard, she feels accepted, she feels cared for, that you listen, that you ask curious questions, that you're truly curious about what is special about her or him. Truly. And so you have to go into your consultation with, oh, there you are. Wow. You're an amazing human being. You might not know that yet, but let's find out. Rather than going into the consultation with, well, I have to be really good at this. I'm not quite sure I know everything there is to know about this. If you go into it with the I'm here, or let me tell you, I can tell you who you are. How absurd is that? No one knows who anyone is. I mean, I hardly know who I am. How can anyone else tell me who I am?
Wow. Is this, Is this kind of the identity therapy that you offer? Does this tell me about how this came about, or a little bit more about this?
Wow. The identity is, from my perspective now, it's everything. I started off thinking it was color. Then I thought, well, so I'd work with people with color and they still looked pretty awful. And then I said, well, maybe style. And I'd give them the right silhouette and the this and the proportion, And then I thought proportion, no, they'd have the right proportions. They'd have the right color, style, proportions. Oh, it had to be fit. It's just because they didn't get their clothes tailored. Well, no, they'd get their clothes tailored and I still didn't know who they were. And then I realized, wow, it's how you put it together, how you accessorize that gives a statement about who you are. That is everything. It's the identity. Who are you? Then we can go back and get the clothes and the accessories and the colors and put them together.
Oh my gosh. So you're saying really, as an image professional, you have to do the identity first and then dress for the identity
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is a revelation. Yes, it makes complete sense.
It's completely turns it upside down. So, and it makes all the difference, because when someone when they leave with the ability to articulate their special qualities of being, it makes it easier for them to make choices. Now, that doesn't mean the stylist isn't ready to hold their hand and walk them through how to apply this. I think some people just take longer than others. Very few go, got it, sure thing. And they're out the door doing it perfectly. They're not going to do it. They need the hand holding, but it gets back to the identity and the ability to articulate. One of my clients was just bought a house and she's on the East Coast and is buying furniture. And I said, oh, remember your words. Remember your words. And she came back and she says, we did. It had to be elegant. It had to be refined. It had to have some sense of delight. I went, okay, whatever it is, do it in a pillow. I don't care. But you cannot just do something that's in fashion and think it's going to work for you. Not going to.
So the way that you started to serve clients when you started your business, there seems to have been quite an evolution, almost a 180-degree shift in the way you approach serving and healing your clients.
Right. Yeah. And you see, we are all becoming. And I'm just so excited that my becoming has enabled me to share this process of identity, how to get to the identity piece in a way that they don't have to go through all the, years in pain and therapy that I did.
Yes. Allow our trauma to be worth something to someone else,
I know. It's like, oh, yes, great. Because I've done it all. I've been sexually abused. I've been this, I've been that, and life goes on. It's how do we use that for good? We can.
How do we use that for good? And so to add in, I guess, the angle that I come in from a marketing and branding perspective, my goal is to help people like you continue to help people that need the help. And I genuinely believe that the colors and the outfits, it's the way you do the work. The work is therapeutic, it's healing, it's nurturing, it's so much more than just getting some new outfits. So do you know what I mean?
It's everything. The outfit needs to nurture your soul. So you start at the inside and then you go the outside, and the outside helps the inside. It's that.
Exactly, that alignment. And it's so interesting because someone like you, let's have a look Carla Mathis, your business, you wrote the text, the sort of scientific text, you know, the framework for style and color and that the triumph of individual style. I remember when I read it, I immediately phoned my sister and I was like, oh my God, look at this. There's a reason I can solve all your problems, which was foolhardy because I can't. And it's not all about the proportion and the harmony and the shape and the balance. My point is this: you have built a reputation through these pioneering efforts, which means from a business perspective that, you know, you can position yourself as an image professional that is the author of this textbook that's, you know, used in universities around the world. The stylists and image professionals that start off studying with you or some of the other organizations that then say, okay, I'm ready to do this. You know, I want to help people. I want clients. What I've recently discovered is that they too need to do the work on themselves, because that information of who they are, their truth, is actually their brand identity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They've got, you know, it's the more you can articulate who you are really, not just who someone says you are, or your mother or your father or whatever, but you really know, like, I know I love a little whimsy. I just have to have it. It has to be something that's kind of childlike, and I'm very much an elegant, sort of iconic, you know, person that's a little bit genius-esque. And yet I need that childlike quality. How do I do that? I do that in maybe a shoe. So the more you know who you are, then you can have that in all of your marketing materials.
Exactly.
So people will know that they're going to be drawn to you. Now, here's the other thing. People are drawn to what is like them. Absolutely.
Yes.
People to people.
Exactly. Like attracts like. Wound matching. It's a universal concept. But what happens is, from a business perspective, and maybe you have some insight on this because you've been serving, you know, business women and helping them with their identity and style. We've all become so frightened of revealing our truth and showing ourselves, which means that the connections never happen because you're not showing any of your edges and seeing if there's a match with anyone. Do you know what I mean?
I know. Well, and yet, just an example of my background has been more, I guess I've done a lot of travel, lived in different countries, lovely experiences, but I haven't had to crawl my way out of poverty or a gutter, right? I don't have that experience. And yet, by having the attitude that every human being is a beautiful in-process being, when a woman came to me that was from a background that I have no experience in, and I was able to work with her identity as this true, beautiful, lovely person. And then I found myself helping her design her pole dancing outfits.
Carla.
She's a lady of the night, kind of, and she's working to not be.
Okay.
And who am I to say that I can't help her get there?
No, but
love her along the way.
It's the empathy. I don't think you need to have had the same experiences. You're not trying to attract clients that have also experienced trauma in their, let's say, the way that you did, but it's the empathy that you gain for other people's experiences that allows you to create a safe space and help them.
It's just so that creating a safe space is key. Kiki.
How do you, because I can guarantee you, again, when I did your course, I sounds like it's a cult because I'm so like, it was amazing. But and as Erin has shared before, I was so excited to get to LA, and I love Mexican food that the night before the course, I just found some Mexican that probably wasn't the most reputable outlet, and felt really sick for day one of the course, and had to go into Erin's medicine cabinet and get some sort of like Pepto-Bismol or something. So I was hunched over like the first day. But you made me, I did not feel embarrassed at all, and I should have. But if we could, do you think you can even articulate how you create a safe environment? Do you even know what it is? Or is it just you?
Right. It's the point of view that there's a reason that you're there. And I just to be okay with whatever reason you have. And it's just this non-judgmental approach to every human being. Yeah. To try to not, and yet it's a kind of, you do have perceptions, and yet you don't want to judge whether it's a good, bad, or indifferent. You just perceive, and then you see if it's an accurate perception, and then how can I help?
Yes. Yeah. So very inquisitive, and kind of a constant evolution of how do I keep moving? Because I think I understand. I know when stylists are starting out, when you don't have confidence, when you're starting in a new industry, you don't have a lot of confidence, you tend to grip onto the tangibles, which is, this is my step-by-step process. I'm going to now ask you these 3 questions, and then we're going to move on to this. But what you're saying is trusting in your insides and letting that be the guide is probably the best way to go.
Right. And, there a couple of times someone has come to me, and I just didn't sense that anything I had to give them was going to benefit them. So then I asked this one man, I said, so tell me, why are you here? How can I help you? And he said, oh, well, you can't really. My wife wants me to come. I said, wow, okay. Well, you know what? Where would you rather be? What would you rather do with this money that you've just spent? And he thought a minute and told me, and I said, well, you know what? I think you ought to take this money and go do that. That'd be much better for you. So again, it's not about me. Yeah. It's all about you.
Yeah. So
I did.
Oh, yes.
Sarah, I did have a 3-day coaching weekend on how to be a coach. Mm-hmm. And what I took away from that was really valuable. It was like 3 levels of communication and listening. Level 1 is that you really don't care. You're just going to say what you say, and you're not interested in what anybody else has to say. Mm. So that's level 1 of communication and listening. You're kind of a brute, actually. Yeah. Level 2 is, well, you say what you have to say, and I'm waiting to say what I have to say. And then yeah. So you're listening with the idea that you have something better to say. Mm. And level 3, and this is what I try to teach and I try to do, experience myself, is, well, I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing you, and it's giving me information about you. And wow, that's really, really interesting. Tell me about that. Tell me more. You just keep drawing out. And then sometimes it's saying something and say, how is this? Does that resonate at all? Mm-hmm. So it's asking, always putting your client in the seat of knowing, and all you're doing is providing possibilities, and their intuition is going to tell them whether it's yes or no.
Wow. It's so true. It's you're absolutely right. I have to say, I'm on a side note, I love your vocabulary, and I would like to pay special mention to dastardly, brute, and whimsical in today's interview, because I love colourful language. And I just wanted to ask you something. I don't know if you guys just saw this on the news today, but it actually made me quite cross. So many stylists and image professionals in our industry are working with other women who don't feel seen. And particularly as we reach a certain age, we become, the perception is that we become less, noticeable or valuable. Time and time again, I have these conversations. On the news today, ABBA, that band, they've released a new album, but it's with a virtual reality version of themselves, when they were 20. So instead of doing they're all alive and well and singing beautifully. And instead of doing a concert that they could do, they've through the powers of virtual reality or augmented reality, they've been able to project themselves on stage doing a concert as 20-year-old versions of themselves. And I thought to myself, that's what I said. I said to my husband, that is just perpetuating the concept that we don't want to see these incredible people at this age. We'd like to just keep seeing the young versions, please. Thoughts?
I'm stunned. I'm very sad. To me, that's not telling the truth.
Yeah.
And that's it. So that's a value I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I kind of, it's sort of like dyeing your hair. There are times to dye your hair and times not to. So it's really a decision one makes. I didn't dye my hair when I started graying because I knew that I would not spend time in the beauty salon to have it done well. And I would look like a zebra and it would not be a pretty sight. So that was disturbing to my mother, who thought I was wonderful, except the fact that I didn't dye my hair, because she dyed her hair until she went to the grave in 96. And I had to make sure that her lipstick was the right color. It was really cute in the casket because she had it all planned. Anyway, if you're 55 working in a company on Zoom or whatever of 20, 30 somethings, you do your hair. Mm-hmm. You're not gray if it's a fast-paced company. If you're 55 and you have a child in kindergarten, you do your hair because otherwise the child thinks their grandma is picking them up. All the other children do. So then there are people who love having light hair. They feel better with light hair. So you're going to do that because it's how you feel inside. But if you can let your hair go gray, then you have to change your wardrobe. You have to do something unusual because gray hair is invisible and people become invisible. So look at the glasses, look at the hairstyle. I mean, I can look like a little old granny if I have a little short haircut and wear glasses that don't have any design.
Yes.
Which is what most women, and then they feel like they are invisible, and they are invisible. So anyone in 50s, 60s, 70s, we need to work at how to put on makeup, how to choose eyeglasses, how to get a hairstyle that really is interesting, giving the skills to do it. We need to learn new skills. So if you don't want to learn skills, then your goal, you have to match your goals with your skill level. Here we go.
Yeah.
Or you pay for it.
It's so true. It's so true. Carla, I want to thank you for being so open and honest and vulnerable with this conversation, because this is the type of conversation I think it's important for people to hear, to remind themselves of what is really true and important and valuable, and the power in owning that truth and using that as an opportunity to empathize and connect with others. You're in a business that relies on this.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking? I think, yes, we have the tools to the process to get to the identity, but it's so important that I think our main task is to let our client know that they really know. Our job is to remind them what they've forgotten along the way. As a child, they knew.
Yes, yes, yes. This is so true. It's just so powerful. And it gives another dimension to this industry. I think it's important, as image professionals trying to market their business and grow their email list or find new clients. Often we focus, well, not often, I would say 99% of the time, the content that people create, the marketing that they do focuses on the clothing. Yet the real work, the real reason they want someone to help them is because of the stuff inside. And the only way you can tap into that is to acknowledge it in yourself and then start communicating from there, because it's just a fundamental paradigm shift, I think, from the image industry, moving away from the physical and into more of the deeper side of things.
Yeah, it is deeper. Like, for instance, I am so enjoying the top that you're wearing with the accessories that you have. And to me, it absolutely communicates your energy and your delight and your liveliness. So it's so important to have only in your repertoire of your wardrobe what nourishes you, supports you, and communicates who you are. And so there's a huge industry possibility in our industry.
Yes.
For curating closets.
Yes.
Curate. You have to do the identity work first, and then this person has to be able to try on all the clothes, and then you have a full-length mirror, and you stand. You say, "Tell me, what is this communicating? What are you? How are you feeling? How did you feel when you wore this?" So having people really pay attention to the stuff and get rid of what doesn't have value, and just have only the things that really support who they are. And it could be many different qualities, and that's okay. But
Carla, when I did your course, up until then, I knew what I liked, but I wore a lot of black because I didn't know how else to create outfits. But Bella, who did the course with me, has always worn beautiful, bright colors, pastels, always very glamorous. And I would always think, I want to wear that stuff, but I don't know how. And I remember thinking to myself when I got back from LA, I'm happy. I'm really happy. And I don't know why I don't want to wear black anymore, because I want to show I am happy. And I just remember having this real sort of connection moment. Consequently, I have no black in my wardrobe since. And I just keep being drawn to the colors that I resonate with, because I want the colors to represent how I'm feeling. And that was a really liberating moment.
It is. So as stylists, we're giving people permission to be themselves, to love being themselves, to love wearing clothes that make them feel happy, or whatever they need, So yes, it all starts on the inside. Starts on the inside with your client. But as a stylist, you have to start on your inside. and do your work.
This is gold. Carla, this has been such a great conversation. I wish we were in the same room together so we could have a cup of tea or a scotch or something.
I know.
We will eventually. The borders will open up and I'll be able to come to America. But Carla, thank you so much. This is really, really exactly what I wanted to talk about. And I cannot, I'm so excited. I need to send this to my editor now because I want people to hear it. I love it. You've been beautiful. Thank you.
I cannot thank you enough for giving me a platform to share my heart of how we can really change the world one person at a time. Yeah,
I completely agree.
So thank you. We need more of you in the world.
We need more Carlas. We do. Very
and
gentle.
More Erins.
And more Erins. Erins would run the world, let's be honest. The detail, yes. You and I can sort of be creative, like flight, we'll just chat and get excited about stuff and Erin can run things.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much, beautiful.
Thank you.
Lots of love.
Thank you.
See you soon.